Welcome. Good to see you again. I'm glad you could drop by, see old Grandpa Joe here. Take a seat. We are about to begin, or continue rather, our fairy tale extravaganza. This one, a tale from Hans Christian Andersen called The Emperor's New Clothes. And this is a very popular and often retold story because it does have a lesson about life to teach. And so maybe pay attention and you'll be able to discover what that piece of advice is. Long, long ago, there lived an emperor who loved new clothes more than anything else in the world. Well, he cared nothing for his army or royal balls or drives in the park or anything else except as an excuse for showing off his fine clothes. He had a new costume for each hour of the day. His empire was ruled by his ministers, while he spent the time before the mirror. One day there arrived at the palace some men who claimed to be famous weavers. Now they were nothing of the kind, but only sly scalawags who made their living by cheating others. But they told of the wonderful cloth they could weave, cloth so wonderful that clothes made from it could be seen only by persons who were wise and honest. It was completely invisible to all those who were stupid or unfit for their office. Thought the emperor. Those clothes will be just the thing for me. With them, I will be able to tell who is unfit for his office. No matter what the cost, I must have some clothes made from that material. Accordingly, he paid the two scalawags a large sum of money and they began their work. In a room of the palace, they set up two looms. Then they ordered a great deal of the finest silk thread and some of gold and silver. And when it arrived, they put it in their bags and set to work at an empty loom. They worked from morn till night, with the looms clacking away, but not a bit of cloth appeared. The emperor, eager for his new finery, wished to know how the work was progressing, but down in his heart he was afraid. What if the material was invisible to him? Then the people would know that he was either stupid or unworthy of being emperor. At last he decided to send his wisest minister. Surely he would be able to see the cloth and report to him just what the pattern was like. The minister hurried to the room where the weavers were working at an empty loom. Of course, he could not see a thing. Oh dear me, he thought. Am I, after all, such a dunce that I should not be consulted to the emperor? I have surely tried to be a help to him. I had no idea that I was either stupid or unworthy to keep this position. He took off his spectacles and cleaned them. But it did no good. He didn't see a single thread. But he didn't want to lose his high position, so he made believe he could see the material very well, and he admired it, saying he liked the blending of the colors and the delicate design. Do you like the unusual way in which we have combined the gold and silver in the pattern? Asked the two, and the minister assured them that he had never seen anything like it. They told him that they could not go on without more money, as well as more of the costliest yarns, whereupon the minister told the emperor he should indeed grant all they asked, as the fabric was of a beauty almost unbelievable. As before, the sly fellows put the money and the thread into their pockets and continued to work with an empty loom. Now the emperor sent another wise statesman to observe the work. The man entered the room and he almost fainted at the sight of the empty loom. Ah, he thought, I cannot be stupid, surely. It must be that there is another who could do my work better than I, and so I am unworthy of the office which I hold. Alas, that this should happen to me! But he never let on that he could not see any cloth. Putting on his spectacles, he moved closer to the loom, exclaiming in wonder at so fine a piece of goods. The weavers, feverishly working at their empty looms, stopped long enough to point out certain exceptional features in their masterpiece. Then they hurried on with it, saying that the emperor wished to have it as soon as possible. Now, the news that two people had seen and admired the magical cloth began to leak out, and the whole town was filled with curiosity. And many worried for fear that at last their stupidity and unfitness for office would be found out. One day the two weavers approached the emperor, saying, Sire, your fabric is nearly finished, but we need more money to buy some very special yarns. Would you like to come and view the unfinished cloth so that if you are dissatisfied, you need not spend any more on it? The emperor and a few of his courtiers went to the weaving room, and all stood flabbergasted when they saw only air where cloth should be. But since none wished to let the others know, each said to his neighbor, Oh, see the lovely blending of colors there in the middle. Oh, surely no sunset could rival the beauty of that coloring. Truly, the men are artists. I wish I had some of their work. But of course, not one of them could see any colors or any cloth, beautiful or otherwise. The emperor decided to wear his new clothes at a parade the next week. Thus all the townspeople could observe him in his finery, and know he was a clever and capable ruler. The weavers cut and sewed the material using only their imaginations for needle and thread, and pretended to fit the garments on the emperor. He stood before the mirror to admire his clothes and asked, Doesn't it fit well? Ah, yes, very nice. He went on mumbling anything at all so that no one would realize that he saw nothing. The cloth is as light as shadows, your majesty, said one of the scalawags. You'll think you haven't a thing on. Ah, yes, said the bewildered emperor. Very fine indeed. The scalawags laughed behind their hands. Now, the day the procession was to be held, the streets were lined with townspeople who wished to view the emperor's new clothes. At the appointed time, he appeared walking, that the people might see him better. He was surrounded by courtiers, and two page boys held up his long train, or at least they took a firm grip on the air where they thought the train should be. On came the emperor, wearing not a stitch of clothing. The people gasped, but quickly made believe it was a gasp of delight at the emperor's costume. Not for worlds would they have their friends and neighbors know their stupidity made the cloth invisible to them. At last, a little boy, too young to understand, cried out, Why, the emperor isn't wearing any clothes! And the people said, You see, a little child is not wise enough to see them. But then the people began to wonder, and all at once they all cried out, But the emperor is not wearing any clothes! And they all began to laugh. The emperor felt a shiver run up his backbone, for he had begun to suspect that they were right. But he could not admit it until the parade was over. So he stood all the taller and held his head high, while the page boys kept a firm hold on nothing and strutted along behind. That's our little tale to celebrate the absurdity of vanity. Hmm? And of course, the willingness to believe the best. Hmm. Much to learn from that, I guess. And we will return shortly with yet another fairy tale. So, what about your business? I'm so happy to have had you this afternoon for a bit of time, but we'll see you again, no doubt, before long. Bye now.